Hey everybody, welcome to GMG Review. Today is part 3 of 4, part rulebook of my Battletech Gothic reviews today. This is a new independently sort of like standalone box game in the Battletech Continuum universe of, think of this like a Rick and Morty episode. It's alternate universes inside sort of like the theme of Battletech with their own canon, their own divergent timeline, their own stuff. This is our first one. It's grim, it's dark. You can check out the review of the background book, the universe book, and the box set itself, all the components in the previous 2 videos. We're talking about rules now. And the actual rulebook. We've got a 122 page, I believe, full color rulebook in this box, all in soft cover, 114 page. As well as some accessories that I want to quickly go over because we've also got a full set of Abomination cards for a Battletech Alpha Strike for you to play Alpha Strike with, and the Gothic variants of all of the cool miniatures that come in this box. So we've got a Marauder, Paramarauder variants, Atlas variants, Firestarters, Phoenix Hawks, Scorpions, Riflemans, Urban Mechs, King Crabs, and the 2 lances of miniatures that come in this box. And the last video that we're going to do is also going to be a review of the miniatures themselves, so you guys can take a look at it. But let's take a look at the rules. Now, if you do not have a Battletech rulebook and this is your first foray into Battletech, this guy's got you covered. Like I said, this is a lot more than you get in the Game of Armored Combat box, 114 pages. It's the full core rules for the game and includes rules for what are called abominations as well. There's some new equipment, like blazers, which are big double-barreled lasers that do 1.5 times the damage, but with twice the heat, and can also use dazzle effects because, I don't know if you know this, but weird space aliens with guns grafted to them, they don't like light very much. They don't like daytime, so they're scared of light. And if you're familiar with this game already with Battletech, the core rules are pretty much identical. So the great good news is, standalone product, you don't need anything from outside this box. It includes rules for everything that comes in the box, including the different generic types of abominations. And that's what I'm going to primarily focus on here. So if you haven't played Battletech before, some things to realize. This is a hex-based grid map tabletop war game. These miniatures that will move around a map. It doesn't require any measuring devices. The mass combat system, which is called Alpha Strike, will use those for more traditional things. You only need a pair of D6s, which also come in this box. I give a lot of companies a lot of crap about not putting dice in every single box. Every time you have the chance to put dice in the box, put dice in the box. You can never have enough dice. And I do like the hard-edged D6s that come in these Battletech box sets. And you get both a map in this box to play on. It's double-sided, which also has terrain features. You get cardstock terrain features that you can move around to add additional terrain and objectives and stuff. And you get cardstock even miniatures for all the abominations that come in here too. This game is all about the damage resolution. So when you look at a Mech Warrior sheet and a Battle Mech, that's typically what you're going to be piloting around here. They will have a whole bunch of information on a single sheet for you to check out right here. Now this is the Firestarter sheet. It's going to have a huge critical damage table, which will let you sort of determine the effects of when firepower hits you. Each of the battle mechs will have different facing, so front facing, back facing, right here, and then the internal structure. As you take damage, you mark off pips to your armor. When you get through the external armor, you get into the structure down here. When structure takes damage, you might also suffer critical effects that you're going to roll for. So you get big dry erase sheets of all of the mechs that come in this box set, as well as the abominations in this box set. And yeah, you're going to move around via movement points. Facing matters a lot. You're going to fire all your different weapons at each other. You're going to track how much heat they generate. That can also cause additional effects because your battle mechs heat up. They can start to like deteriorate. Your pilot can take damage on the inside here. And there's additional new pilot types in here with the Frayed as well. And that's, yeah, pretty much the same exact stuff that you're going to see in a standard game of Battletech is introduced in the core mechanics here. So not a lot really has changed. Now you have different movement modes. You can stand still. It makes you basically fine for shooting, but there's no penalties to your opponent shooting you either because you're standing still. You don't make any heat. You do a bunch of walking, and you can also have a TMM go up, your target number modifier, for being hit based upon how far you move. You can run as well, which will also up that, but it vice versa modifies your ability to shoot on the move. Can't run into water. You can jump. And that allows you to like burn your afterburners and jump jets and stuff to move around. And there's different types of terrain, different facings you can have as well. Certain types of movement, if you are on a lateral shift, a quad mech, they can actually move sideways, which is interesting. So normally mechs can't do that. They can move front and back, and they have to pivot to move sideways. This little guy's got crab legs, so he can move sideways just fine, but he has to maintain his facing, which I think is really cool. And then we have all of the various modifiers for terrain that you can move through. Woods, right? If you're on a road, you get additional movement bonuses and stuff. You can go prone, get knocked over, you have to make fall checks. All kinds of things can happen as you take critical damage too. Your legs can get blown off, and you might just fall down and have to get back up. Combat's pretty simple. It's based upon the movement, and you're going to see in a game like this, there's not going to be a lot of models on the table, so there's a lot of individual information to track for each one. So how far you moved every turn determines how much you get hit by, and very often people use another group of small different colored dice for if you walked, ran, or jumped. So usually a white dice next to you will track your target number modifier, so based on how far you move, you just put the dice down with the modifier. If it's 0, you just put it to 6. And if you ran, you put a black dice, and if you jumped, you put a red dice, and that way you can keep track. So little GW dice, colored little GW dice, if you still have those around, are great for tracking your target numbers and modifiers and seeing what movement type you use during the course of the turn, although lots of companies will make little accessories in MDF and plastic as well. So yeah, not a lot different here. Firing weapons, same thing. You can use your modifier for your different ranges. So if you're within short range, it's 0. If you're within medium range, it's +2. If you're in long range, it's +4. You can see here. Sometimes you have a minimum range you can't shoot inside of. So that would be a 0 modifier to your target roll, which is, again, a 2d6 roll looking to try and hit. Most guys will have a piloting skill of 4 when they start off, which means on a 4+ they hit, but the number might go up. So in medium range, that would be a 6+. It would be an 8+ in long range to try and hit the same target, plus any modifiers for their movement or cover or any stuff like that. So again, pretty standard stuff. Rolling for hit location, seeing where you land, rolling for clusters of missiles and stuff when you fire rockets at people, and then the variety of different damage. So every time you hit somebody, if you hit them in the left, the right, or the front and rear, you'd roll a die. Here's a 6. If I'm shooting from the right, it's the right torso. I'd apply my damages to that section, and then they would walk towards the middle as they fire. And then, yeah, rules for punching and kicking, all the physical attacks. So not a lot different here. How to resolve damage, because it all happens at the same time. So if I shoot you and blow your arm off, I still get to shoot back later on without having lost my arm, because everything's simultaneous. And then tracking heat points and all the various things. So if you walk and run, you can generate an extra heat, and your heat level will determine how you're basically doing in combat. And the number of heat sinks you have will bleed that heat off. Other actions, like your pilot skill rolls, if you have to like run into water, you fall down, try and stand back up. And then we're into the new stuff. All right, so here we go. Abominations. Now, what is an abomination? Well, in this game box, they're tracked by little tokens, little cardboard chits, and you'll have a stack typically determining how much damage each one can take. You also have frayed, which is pilots. Now the frayed are new pilot types of like spliced mech warriors, and they're not as good at reacting. So if you only have frayed pilots and the frayed are in charge of the battle group, you're -2 to your initiative rolls, but they all get -1 to all their rolls to hit because they're just wired better. Their reflexes are amazing. Their piloting rolls and gunnery skills are -1. We have different classes. So even though they might have a variety of stats, right? Like a gnat, we can see here, these are the support cards for them. So like a gnat is a swarmer. Even though their stats are different, a werewolf is still a swarmer. So swarmers, maximum of 6 monsters in each unit. A unit is a single stand. Rows per monster, 1. Standing height, 1. So they're a 1 height creature. They get a bonus to their target movement modifier, so +1. It's always +1 to hit them. So it's always 1 harder than your piloting or your gunnery skill to try and hit those guys. And the stack limit is 6. How many guys can be in a single thing? Can't go prone because they're already standing up. They're already little, right? Hulks are 3 per stand, giants are 2 per stand, titans are 1 per stand. They're effectively like a light battle mech. And they have to declare facing because they're like a light battle mech, basically. They have the record sheets. As I showed in the previous one, the record sheets will have multiple of these guys per sheet to basically be able to track the stand. And then each block of data along the left side of an abomination record sheet covers all of its stats relevant to a single abomination. So I'm going to pull out the record sheets right now, actually, because I'm going to make this easier to talk about. And the counters, actually, because I can show them too. So these are counters, which also show how much damage they can take. And here's our record sheets, which are all in dry erase, which is super handy. to give you an idea of their stats. We get blank record sheets as well that allow us to create our own or input data from future publications. So Abomination data. So here we have, it's laid out like a battle mech, right? So the gnats are a swarmer, which means you can have a maximum of 6 on a stand and 6 in a unit. They each have 3 boxes of damage, and there's 6 per stand, right? So when you buy them, you would basically take them and then have as many as you want to have on the stand. The stands for a swarmer would be like right here. So these are gnats, right? If they have a handler, that handler can have certain bonuses. So typically the bonus is -1 to their skills. And a typical gnat, if we look at their support card over here, is going to have a skill of 5 and then 4 for their animmelee, their animalistic melee. And they're 2, 4, 6 for range, damage 4, and they have a check of 6+, and a threshold of 1. They're nimble and have the swarm special rule. TMM +3, movement points 6, and they're VTOL. They can also do mob, so physical damage. When they mob, there's a special mob action for charging Battletechs in a group, and they can also hobble Battlemechs, but they don't have a great hobble skill. The werebeasts have a higher hobble skill. The idea is that they break the legs and try and keep you from moving very far. And then along the right side of the Abomination record sheets are supplemental tables for combat using Abominations. These are just to aid players in resolving common things. So a lot like a quick reference sheet, we have the number of creatures and the base to hit modifier for your mobs. Mob attack hit locations. So there's only 1 creature, it's harder to mob, but if there's 4 to 6, it's only +1 to make a mob attack. And then hit location tables, basically when you make a mob attack, where does it land? If it's a bipedal guy or a 4-legged guy, right? We're gonna roll 2d6 and see where it lands when you attack. So there's boxcars, that's the head. You manage to mob the head. And then hobble attacks, again, lots of guys, it's easier to hobble. Only 1 guy, it's +5. So like your animmelee is gonna be 4, then a +5 would be a 9 to hit, and you don't land it. And then hobble attacks are always the legs, right? Because you're trying to break a guy's legs. So it's because they're basically trained to fight battle mechs. When you do a hobble attack or a mob attacks are only available to swarmers. Or, they're available to everybody, but they're better for swarmers because they have the number of creatures on the stand, basically making their modifiers better. But making hobble attacks, it means you're just attacking the legs right away. So it's kind of like making a called shot. And there's a random creature number table. So whenever you're going to generate guys in a scenario, you have a special table there for seeing if the amount that show up on a stand. And then like Mech Warriors, Abominations have 2 primary skills, animmelee and gunnery. As with Mech Warriors, the lower the Abomination score is a given skill, the better that skill. Animmelee is short for animal melee. It's the equivalent of a pilot Mech Warriors piloting skill. And while primarily used as the base target number for their physical attacks, animmelee can also be used to deal special circumstances where the gunnery skill just doesn't make any sense. And likewise, Abomination units use gunnery skill is relevant to that of a Mech Warrior and is used to resolve range weapon attacks accordingly. So like for instance, these guys have light machine guns, SRM4s on the werebeasts, flamers and machine guns, medium anti-mech rifles, medium laser on the Rampager. And the big guys can have things like medium lasers, SRMs, a light binary laser, which is the flashy laser on the Stone Giant, anti-mech rifles on the Troll King, and rocket launchers. And they can have a huge amount of damage points. Because each of these is, I think, 5, 10, 15, 16 damage. So 16, 32, 74, 90. 90 damage points that Stone Giant can take. It's a lot of damage. And then we have default Abomination skill ratings. It's always 4 unless, like it says, there's a different one. Integrating them into Battletech, so basically they don't use any heat, or they act just like mechs. They activate just like mechs when you activate a unit, but they don't take any heat because they're not mechs. Abomination only forces don't make a lot of sense. In any circumstance where a force is entirely comprised of Abomination units before the start of the scenario, or due to a loss in gameplay, the Abomination force suffers a -4 modifier to its initiative rolls. And then movement modes. Abominations come in a broad range of forms, and each with their own style of movement, regardless of their nature. All possess some form of overland locomotion, which is their ground MP. This works like a battle mech's walking or running MP and indicates their maximum speed per turn, be it on legs or some sort of ground level movement. So same with these guys, their ground MP is going to be 2. This can include powerful leaps, and its jump MP or a sustained form of airborne travel like a VTOL MP. Like battle mechs, Abominations may only choose 1 available movement profile per turn. Prone or stumbled abominations. Abominations cannot use jumping or VTOL movement modes from a prone position. Abominations have to stand up to do that. And then ground MP, you have a standard modifier. Abomination units using ground MP reduce the terrain cost for rubble, rough, and woods by 1 to a minimum of 1 per MP of hex entered. And then restricted terrain abominations units using ground MP cannot move or be forced to move into a hex higher than the unit's height. 1 level are swarmers and hulks, and 2 levels for giants and titans. An abomination that attempts to enter a hex 2 or more levels lower than the unit's height resolves a crashing and drowning abomination or might fall. Abomination units use ground MP and may not enter water terrain with a depth characteristic of more than half their height. So depth 0 for swarmers and hulks and depth 1 for giants and titans. So the little guys will drown. The big guys can go into depth 1. The abomination units using ground movement may decide to drop prone, but the prone condition only affects the height of the giant and titan size classes as these rules track it. But anyone that's smaller than that just can't go prone. Jumping MP, VTOL MP, it's usual stuff for those separate rules. Hovering and landing for VTOL stuff. Facing only matters for the big guys. Everybody else is considered infantry. And then movement-based combat modifiers. Target modifiers is attacker. Regardless of the movement chosen, abomination units attackers is always Gator A0. The target numbers as target. When attacking abomination units, the primary target movement modifier is based on the number of hexes they moved as normal. And some will add to their, based on if they're jumping or using VTOL. If the target abomination unit is of the swarmer or hulk size, additional +1 is also applied due to their small size and dispersed nature. Don't track any heats. Regardless of the size or class, you don't get a prone modifier. And then stacking. Due to the smaller size relative to battle mechs, swarmers and hulk type abominations can occupy the same hex as a mech, friend or foe. But giant and titan abominations may not. Abominations may pass through hexes occupied by allied units, but must automatically end their movement if they enter an enemy unit's hex. At the end of all movement phases, a single hex can be occupied by up to 6 swarmer type abomination units, 3 hulk types, 2 giant types, or a single titan type. If multiple abomination units occupy the same hex, treat a hulk type abomination unit as the equivalent of 2 swarmer units, while a giant type is the equivalent of 3 swarmer units. So basically, add together to be 6 at maximum. And then your weapon attacks, you need line of sight. You can fly, you can see over stuff. You don't have an arc unless you're a giant or titan. And then torso twists and flipping arms. The firing arcs available to abominations reflect the full range of their physical flexibility. They cannot use torso twist, and reversing arm features available to battle mechs. They don't pivot like action figures the way battle mechs do. And then unit attacks. They train to maximize damage potential by coordinating attacks. No matter how many creatures make up the abomination unit, all active monsters in the unit make their weapon attacks as a group to the same target per weapon system. A unit need not attack with all the weapons in its inventory, but for each weapon fired, all active members of the unit will fire them in unison. Only 1 attack roll is required per weapon per unit, regardless of the number of creatures in the unit. So for instance, gnats are a 6 full abomination. All 6 creatures would fire their light machine guns, resolving a single 2d6 roll. Comparatively, a full strike Titan unit has 3 Hulk-sized creatures, each armed with 2 small lasers and 2 SRM-5s. So you would stack together the SRMs if they all had SRM-5s. Weapon attack restrictions. Abomination units engaged in either mob or hobble physical attacks may not execute ranged weapon attacks. Abomination units in water terrain may not execute ranged weapon attacks because they're too busy swimming. And then the attacker movement modifier. Except when prone, abomination units do not receive any attacker modifiers for their own movement. Obviously, there's no heat. And then weapon damage. Once an abomination unit successfully makes a weapon attack, it resolves damage against the target based on the weapon type and the number of active creatures. Just because most abomination units act as 1 for the purpose of each weapon's attack, there is no guarantee that all the weapons will score a damaging hit. The following rules only cover damage from weapon attacks delivered by an abomination unit, and for physical attacks, do something else. Missile and rocket weapon attacks, they're resolved similarly to other weapon attacks by abominations. For attacks that use missile weapons like SRMs or LRMs or rocket launchers, the number of potential hits is found by first multiplying the number of tubes the weapon used by the number of active creatures in the unit. And this will form the cluster table hits basically for what you're going to be attacking with. So 3 creatures, each carry a pair of SRM-5s, would use the 15 column to find out how many missiles hit. So it's real easy, honestly, with rocket weapon attacks. And then if a unit delivers a successful attack with a non-missile weapon, resolve the damage of a single hit from the listed weapon, normally against the target's appropriate hit location. If more than 1 creature is active in the unit when it scores a successful hit for non-missile weapons, roll 2d6 and use the column on the cluster hits table that corresponds to the number of active creatures in the unit. This roll determines how many of the unit's members scored a damaging hit. Once the number of hits has been determined, each weapon delivers its full damage to that hit location. So for instance, if a unit of Rampagers has 3 active creatures, when it makes a successful attack with medium lasers, the number of lasers would be determined by rolling a 2d6 on the 3 column of the cluster hit table. So if you use the cluster hit table, we can look right here. And where's our cluster hit table? Heat table, physical attacks, facing after falls. So the number of hits would be, in this case, a 6. I go down the table. If there's 3 guys in there, then that's going to be, and there's 3 guys in the, so I got rolled a 6. I get 2 people landing their full damage. And then random creature numbers. Abomination units of any size and class may stumble into the unit as a whole, suffering more than 20 points of total damage. Yeah, so random creature number table. Number of creatures in the unit, and then you roll to see how many get actually hit by stuff. So Abomination units do not have hit locations like battle mechs, nor do the direction of an attack against matter for damage tracking purposes. Instead, every creature in Abomination is represented by 1 or more rows of circular pips that denote their combined health, armor, and vitals. The sheer amount of hybrid megafauna in the synthetic environment equipment needed to make Abomination's battlefield viable are simply too varied to allow the detail more granular that's in Battletech. Basically, it'd be too complicated to make these guys more than just a bunch of pips. When Abomination unit takes damage, instead of rolling 2d6 to find the hit location against the unit, roll a d6 to determine which creature in the unit is struck. So you just go down the thing. And find the column in the random creatures number table. So basically, if you roll a 3 and there's 4 guys in the unit, then the 3rd one is the one that gets hit. And that'll just randomize which of the guys on the column here. So if I was shooting at, let's say, this Colossus Abomination, I rolled a 6, and there's 2 guys in the unit, it's guy number 2 who would take the damage and get landed on. So basically, the number of creatures is the number of hit locations you have, and it spreads the damage out amongst the guys in the unit. Abomination units of any class size may stumble if the unit as a whole suffers more than 20 total damage points, or if the unit is successfully hit by a physical attack that can displace it. Mob and hobble attacks. When Abominations execute a mob physical attack, the unit's creatures attempt to latch onto and clamber on the mech's upper body. Once there, they hang on as long as possible, using their non-missile weapons to tear into the mech from point-blank range. No more than 1 Abomination unit may attempt a mob or hobble attack against the same battle mech. It's possible to target the same battle mech with both a mob and a hobble attack simultaneously, but each attempt must be made by a different Abomination unit. Abomination units that have already attempted a weapon attack in the same turn may not initiate a mob or hobble attack. So you make your attack roll, use the modifiers in the table we already talked about. Beginning the turn after the mech successfully mounted an enemy battle mech using a mob or hobble attack, Abominations may attack the mech during each subsequent physical attack phase, as long as they remain mounted to it. This attack delivers the appropriate damage value, mob or hobble, is listed beneath the Abomination unit's weapon on its record sheet, for each active creature in the unit. So again, if I'm looking at these guys, not the Tyrant because they can't make it, but if I was going to mob, I would do 4 damage per guy in the unit with Werebeast if I'm mounted on you. And you would roll for the locations. So mob attack hit location, you roll 2d6. And based on the mech type, so each hit, this one goes to 11, the rear center torso takes 4, then 7, the front center torso takes 4, then 7, and the front center torso gets 4. And for each guy left in the unit, 4, the rear right torso would take damage. Basically, you climb on top and you keep eating them. While mounted on a mech with a mob or hobble attack, Abominations cannot attempt any range attacks. And fighting off mob attacks, a battle mech who has arms can attempt to swat away mob-mounted Abominations with what amounts to a modified punch attack against itself. This effort resolved the physical attack phase, works like a normal punch attack, including any modifiers for missing actuators, but applies a +4 modifier in place of the normal target modifiers. A battle mech may take up to 2 such attacks in the same phase, 1 for each arm. If it's unsuccessful, the mech must resolve the strike as a successful punch attack against itself using the punch location table. If it is successful, the mounted Abomination unit suffers the mech's normal punch damage, but the damage is distributed against it in 2-point groupings rather than as a single hit. The mounted unit's then dislodged, and then you knock them off, basically, into another hex. They land and fall on the ground in the target's hex and suffer the damage equal to a 2-level fall. Abominations that are dislodged from a mech entering water hex fall to the surface of the water, but only suffer the falling damage to the mech entered the water via hex via jumping. So basically, I knock them off by doing that. And then rules for them making melee attacks, and of course hobbling, attacking the legs. Falling, crashing, and drowning because they're little. And that's pretty much it. So the following applies if using the Mercenaries box rules for employing Abominations as battlefield support. Abomination assets, unless they have the VTOL movement type, can enter water hexes of depth 1 or deeper for Swarmers and Hulks, and depth 2 for deeper for Giants and Titans. Abomination assets using the Foot MP F reduce the train cost for Rubble, etc., etc. And each Abomination has a Swarm special rule. See Mercenaries, page 9. For the purpose of this special, Swarmers and Hulks count as conventional infantry, while Giants and Titans count as battle armor. And then we got some additional rules. So Dazzle mode, basically you you can declare you're switching the lasers to Dazzle mode for in the end phase of the gameplay sequence. When Dazzle mode is active, all laser weapons, including blazers, reduce the heat that they generate by half, but do half their normal damage. But they do normal damage when attacking Abominations, and if they hit a pilot who's frayed in the head. And then there's special modifiers for firing Dazzle lasers. Basically, you do like a wide spread and you try and do like light damage and you scare them away. And then special flamer rules for flamers versus Abominations. They take 2d6 damage divided into 5-point clusters like an LRM or rocket launcher volley. Because they don't take heat damage, but they burn. And then your handlers, if you have any handlers in your army, the individual presence applies a -1 modifier to the base and a melee and gunnery skill. Up to 3 allied Abomination units per handler. But they have to ride in the mech with somebody. Or attached to a unit. If they're in a mech though, they have to take a piloting test like every time anytime the pilot would take damage, the mech warrior, they have to make a test as well, but they don't have the same like protections. They make it like against their own basic like skill. And then they have to wake up again if they get knocked unconscious, and you lose all your bonuses for the Abominations. And if all your handlers are unconscious, for instance, they would go to that penalty for initiative. That's all that's left. We get some scenarios. Cool training scenario. Basically, in this one, the enemies of the Crux have been captured. So you have a Mech Krieger from the Iron Fist Alliance, a champion Demetrius Aster from Avalon, and Mechanautus Nadia Constanza, who I think is supposed to be from the Unistar. They're in damaged battle mechs and have to fight waves and waves and waves of Abominations to try and win their freedom, which is neat. A bug hunt. In this one, you've got a group of smaller battle mechs, and they are being supported by a whole bunch of Abominations, being hunted by the Iron Fist Alliance. And I believe these are the Blood Dragon. I'm part of the Blood Dragon, I think they're called. And then finally, Blasphemy. And this is one where they're sending the Unistar to go fight you. But in this one, you would need to have both sides having, like you need 2 sets basically of the miniatures from the Star set. Because you would have a Abomination team, a Phoenix Hawk, and a Scorpion. Actually, no, because you need multiple Urban Mechs, that's right. 2 Urban Mechs, a Rifleman, and an Atlas in the one army. And then a Firestarter, a Phoenix Hawk, a Scorpion, and then a Stone Giant, a Ravager, a Marauder, and a King Crab on the other side. So, yeah, you need multiple Urban Mechs and multiple Firestarters. I think multiple Phoenix Hawks as well. Yeah, so, and multiple Scorpions. And again, this is like a temple fight. Rules for all the Blazers, which again, you get 50% increase to your damage, but twice as much heat sink, or twice as much heat generated. And then rules for Abominations, which are the Frayed Mech Warriors. And the fact that their gunnery skill is better, but they take damage from light. We get some background on all the different Abominations, and all the little Doom bad guys. This one's my favorite, the weird Sharkicon one. Where is he? This guy. This guy right here. Yeah, the Colossus. I love him so much with his weird triangle mouth. And the Ravager, who's a Tarrasque, basically. It's very cool, too. Technical readouts 3015 for the special Urban Mechs and Firestarter. Little castle guys, the Phoenix Hawk and the Scorpion. The Rifleman and the Marauder. I think the Rifleman is like his guard on his helmet there. And the cool Atlas and King Crab for our super heavies. And that's all quick reference. So yeah, there we go. New added content for classic Battletech for playing in Battletech Gothic, and look at the rulebook, which is a complete standalone rulebook for playing in this universe. So also Alpha Strike. You can take squads of Abominations. Now, if you take a squad of 4 Devils, right, you need to pay for this 4 times. They have 1 armor and 2 structure. They do 1 damage, 8 inches of jump movement, a TMM of 1. And they're ambushers, AM, Car 4, and they have HT1 and Recon. On the other side, the Werebeast. He's damage 2 at short range, ambushers again. It's an Abomination, size 1, TMM 1, and 6 jump. Now, all of this stuff is going to have special rules for Abominations. They can be used in Alpha Strike game with the following rules. Their unit type is Abomination. Abomination units use movement as mechs, but with a -1 inch move cost for buildings, rough, rubble, and woods. Prohibited terrain. Abomination units may not enter water, depth of 2+. Line of sight facing and fire arcs. They're infantry for the purpose of line of sight and fire arcs. They take no additional damage from being shot up from behind. And then attacks against the Abomination units apply an additional +1 target number penalty at all times. And they never take heat or critical hits. So they can't heat up either. We got a Ravager over there, only 24 points. And he's a 1 squad size. He's effectively a medium battle mech, right? 3 armor and 2 structure. Car 12, Recon, and then an SRM 1. 3 damage short, 3 damage medium. 6 and he's on foot. Rules for the Frayed Mech Warrior. He's an Abomination. He's going to be an ambusher that can, I guess, ride inside something. You can use him as like maybe a whatchamacallit, a infantry stand. Gnats, 14 points each. Do no damage. I'm actually not sure what that means because they're AM, Car 3, and Recon. I don't know why they do no damage. They're just little scouts and spotters, it looks like. Tyrants, 2, I think, because normally that means you can overheat to +1, but they don't take any heat. Car 9 and Recon. 2 and 2 for the Cricket. Colossus, 2 and 1, he's an ambusher as well. 4 inches of movement on foot. 3 armor, 2 structure. Car 12, HT1 at short range, and then Recon. And the Rampager. 3 armor, 2 structure, 2 damage up close, and 1 at medium range. Car 9 and Recon. And then a Stone Giant, who's a missile boat. 3 armor, 2 structure. Car 12, LRM's 1 for all ranges, and then Recon as well. And then finally a Troll King, which is Car 12 and Recon. And again, these guys are slow, small, like additional little support units that you can take to follow up your battle mechs. And then all 8 of these mechs get double profiles. So the Firestarter for 20 points, he's a scout. 12 jump movement with TM of 2. 2 at short and 1 at medium. He's got his little heat scale right there with overheat. I like where they put that. And then critical hits. He's a battle mech. HT1 and then rear 0. He's got a rear shot he can overheat for. His variant has energy weapons, HT1, and then rear 0. So he does heat damage up close. And then he can overheat 1, doing 1 damage at short and medium. He's got flamethrowers. Our Phoenix Hawk, he's a skirmisher, 12 jump, right? 4 armor, 4 structure, no special rules. But then his variant gets MEL as a special. And can overheat for 1. The Scorpion, also a skirmisher, 5 structure and 4 armor, no special rules, but 2, 2, and 1. No overheat though. A 12-inch move. His variant gets an SRM 1. And no long-range shot. The Rifleman, our sniper, 8-inch move, no jump. 2, 2, and 1. So all just like medium X here. 2 overheat though. You can overheat big time. And then 4 armor and 5 structure. The variant here, the 3B. 2, 2, and 0. He's a brawler with 8-inch move. 1 overheat. And then 5 armor, 5 damage. He's got all energy weapons in this one. The Marauder, the 3R. He's a brawler. 2, 3, and 3 is our long-range shooter. 6 armor and 6 structure. This guy's a machine. 8-inch move, no jump though. And the Sniper, 3, 3, and 0 with 1 overheat. He's got 7 armor and 6 structure, energy, and MEL. Atlas, our brawler, up close to Juggernaut. He's TM1, move 6, 5, 5, 2. He's got 0 overheat, but he can take 10 armor points and 8 structure. AC 2, 2, but no long range. Indirect fire 1, LRM 111, and then rear shots 1-1, but nothing at long. 52 points, it's the D. And then the H, 3, 3, and 1, significantly cheaper, same armor profile. Indirect fire 1 in melee. And 3, 3, 1 be overheats 2. So you can go 5, 5, 3. Right, as opposed to just being 5, 5, 2 all the time. And then an Urban Mech, a 60B, 12 points. Look at this little guy, 2 and 1, 3 armor, 3 structure, can overheat for 1. And this guy's got an AC1, yeah he does, 2 and 1, a little ambusher, but he can jump 2. And finally the King Crab, 3, 3, and 1, 2 overheat, so 5, 5, and 3 if he overheats big time. And then he's got 9 armor and 8 structure, AC2 and 2, indirect fire 1. And his variants, AC1 and jump 1. 3, 4, and 2. He's got a long range gun. No, and 2 overheat too, Juggernauts. So an interesting pile of rules. I'm excited for both the Alpha Strike and the core Battletech Gothic stuff. And ably supported, obviously, by not just like the quick references, but we have also the fully dry erasable sheets for all the battle mechs in here as well. So yeah, I think the Abomination rules are pretty simple. I like the fact that they fight in a way that is generally sort of in keeping with what they are, right? So they can go for the legs, they can climb on top of you. It adds to the theme of the fact that there's monsters fighting robots here and the kind of kaiju thing. I'll just say it one more time though, for the people in the back, I want miniatures. Like, I like these, but I want models. I want to see miniatures. I do like that you can mark how many guys are on the stack, basically, by marking off the little circles on here. So you know if it's 1, 2, or 3. And yeah, and let's see more of this. I don't know if they're going to make more miniatures for this, but I do hope we see them in particular for the monsters, just so we can get that stuff on the table. I'm going to play through the 3 scenarios from this book, just so we can give it a go. And yeah, and paint up these models. So look forward to that in the future. Final video today is going to be checking out the models and little variant kits for the Atlas. Big thanks for watching. Until next time, Mash.